auction item.
All right, let's call the County Board of Commissioners meeting for May 17th to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Any adjustments to the agenda? Gary?
I would like a little adjustment at the end when it comes for Commissioner Moe to present his support of resolution for the chainsaw CPR training. I'd like a little chance, in case we have a forestry person here, that we could have some conversation with them. They can't be here for opening comments.
Okay. And we were adding one other item besides Commissioner Moe's resolution.
The, Madam Chair, yeah, it's the request for the funds for the
Veterans.
Veterans Memorial.
Could you state out loud the first edition, because Bev doesn't know about it?
Commissioner Moe?
I have received a letter from the Arrowhead Coalition of Multiple Use asking for our support for chainsaw certification and CPR, and I was going to present that to the board to see if we'd be willing to support that. And Commissioner Storley would like us, I think, what'd you say, to have?
If we have a person available to have them as part of the conversation.
Okay.
That's E, Bev.
Okay.
And then F is the veterans request for memorial. Anything else? Commissioner Gamble?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Commissioner Storley, any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comment. There is no public here because our public is the cameraman today. But we do have it listed at 10:45, so we will take a moment. If public does arrive and wish to speak to us, we will take that moment at 10:45 as it's listed. So next we have the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? I would like to pull D. With that, could I get a motion to approve? Commissioner Gamble?
And motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
And a second?
Support.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. D, Brady, is this a budgeted item? Or do we do this annually?
No, this is new, to my knowledge anyway. But talking with Brian, we have more than sufficient money in that fund, so it would cover it. If you wish to go forward with it, you wouldn't need any additional funds. He was budgeting for a full painting of the Hoveland Town Hall, was part of the 6,800, and some of that's actually been done under the project that's been going on. So he's anticipating we'll be significantly under the budget, so it's easily fit.
A little background, Madam Chair?
Yep.
So currently, there is a phone line into the Hoveland Town Hall, but it is not turned on. And there's no cell phone reception there either at the town hall. There's a number of events there this summer, including the Hoveland Art Fair, which the vendors would like to be able to take credit cards, but also for safety. Yeah, for safety purposes, it'd be, I think, prudent to have a live phone line at the town hall. The request is to turn it on for the summer months, and then have some discussion locally and with the board as to the need for longer-term phone access, and if we were to want longer-term access, I would bring that to the board as a budget item for next year. But right now, we estimate that it'll be a little over $200 for 3 months for phone service for Hoveland Town.
And Brady, our other facilities, are we gonna run into requests for all of our facilities to have this operation?
I have no idea. The only other town hall is Colville. That we have that we own the building, and that I anticipate you'd have that request.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think in the situation with the activities that go on at Hovland, that it certainly makes sense. And if I understand the explanation Brady provided, that the monies that the board approved for improvements, that it would be taken out of those funds, so it's no additional monies.
Yeah, Brian budgets every year for the, there's insurance that we pay on both of those buildings, Colville and Hovland Town Hall, and any utilities, but this just happened not to be one of the utilities that we've been paying for.
But
in
it's
recent
within
years.
the amount that's
Yeah,
allocated.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the summer service, temporary phone service for the Hovland Town Hall in the amount as stated.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, Brady, first quarter general fund budget report.
Okay. I think it's on the back. Something in my packet. So this is the regular quarterly general fund budget report that it's in our policy to review quarterly. And does everybody see that page? So just a little background, the way the form is set up. Your first columns are the actual expenses and revenues for the first quarter of 2016. And the second columns are what we budgeted in 2016. And then we show what's over and under the budget. And then the other organization is that the first departments on the first page there, they go from 01 to 600. You turn the page, it goes to 822. Those are the regular operating departments that we budget for. And then all of the other departments that come after that, 061, 64, and so forth, are either grants that we don't budget for, or some of those cash balance items, where the money just comes in and out, and we keep separate track of those. So, just going to the back of the sheet, we are at very close to the 25% expenses, as we usually are this time of year, since most of our expenditures are payroll related rather than capital items in the general fund. And so then back to the first page, I'll just highlight some of the, I'm not too close to the mic. I'll just highlight some. I'm too far away. Those that are significantly off, the court administration, 36%, and those are those court-ordered items for the CHIPS cases, and that we have no control over, although they really haven't gone over budget in the last several years. The Auditor Treasurer's Office, we're at 27, slightly over. That's due to just the timing of our audit fees. General Finance Administration is at 32%. That's primarily because we pay insurance costs all up front at the beginning of the year, so that's usually over. Data processing is a little bit high at 32%, and that's due to the MSIS fees that they have paid in advance. I think they've paid the second quarter. Dropping down to the courthouse operations, that's the maintenance department, slightly high due to snow plowing fees that come in the winter. And anything else you have a comment on, just ask me to stop. The senior center is at 50%. We pay half of that at the beginning of the year, the other half in the summer. That's a discretionary fund. The arts are at 100%. That's discretionary. Those are small. We pay all of those in January. Community centers at 33%. That's due to the high utilities at the beginning of the year in the winter, and then some repair bills. and turning it over. Soil and water, we pay that one up front, so that is 100% paid, their levy amount. And that's about it, unless you have questions.
Commissioner Gable?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brady, 226, which is Grand Portage deputy cost, just looking at that in the actual and then looking at the budget, it's not budgeted for, but it's,
They receive funding, they pay that, and then they bill for it, and get the money back in, so he just doesn't put it in his budget.
okay. So, again, when you're
So-
looking at this without that narrative, it just,
Right.
it just
It
appears
will-
like we were paying attention to something that's obviously we're gonna have.
No, it gets billed and the money is returned, and that comes out to zero by year end, so.
And that's true on the last page for like 605 and 704, because those are, significantly over, especially development grants.
Yeah, 604 is that invasives team, that's all state grant.
Yeah,
And where's 605?
605 is the ag EMP.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, egg BNP, that is all paid actually by the homeowner in their taxes, so it gets repaid. So, but first of all, the initial payment comes out from the state, and then we pay the state back when we collect their taxes.
And so, we use terminology that'll say, this is a pass-through account, or we'll say, as you have here, in and out account, which are basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, the in and out is the payroll account you're talking about?
Well, yeah, where I just
Yeah.
looked at the language, I was looking to the far right,
Yeah.
I seen the language.
Payroll, for example, is our payroll is not integrated with our financial system. It's all MSIS, but we have to do journal entries back and forth between the payroll system and the general fund departments. So we get the cash, and we have to use the department to do the cash in and out.
Yeah. The reason I appreciate the discussion is that, as commissioners, when we're looking, from financial oversight standpoint, when we have a pass-through account, or when we receive monies or grant funds, where grant is paying, that these are monies that have been allocated that we spend on various things, but it's not monies that are coming out of our levy.
Right.
And so when we see these funds are provided to us, and then we just track them, and in situations where we become the, representative or, the authority that grant funds pass through, then we see the money, but it has no reflection on
No.
our levy.
None of these in that second, after the line of the operating accounts,
Yeah,
none of those are levy accounts. And in fact, there are other grants.
from 061.
You, actually, if you look very closely, some of these operating accounts have grants, they might have small grants, but that are regular, annual, and it's part of their operating account, so we don't break that out. But these are mostly grants that are either, it's totally grant funded, and we want it a lot of times just for accounting purposes to keep track.
Right.
It's just much easier to keep track as a separate department, and it's no levy, and it's just in and out, and those need to zero out, either at the end of the year or at the end of the grant. So sometimes they cross over.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Need a motion to approve?
I'd ask a motion, that's what's in our policies.
Commissioner Gamble?
Make a motion to approve the first quarter general fund budget report.
Second.
Commissioner Severson seconds. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Molly, temporary watercraft inspector contract.
Yes, so Amanda Weaver did offer to be here, I didn't, request that she be here, but, she is our invasive species coordinator, aquatic invasive species coordinator of, that program that is state funded. Frank might be able to answer questions too that I can't cover, but, essentially, in order to run that program and the boat landing inspection part of it, she needs to hire some people who can go to boat landings. That's what this contract is about. She interviewed 3 applicants recently. I haven't heard back from her whether whether she's planning on hiring all of those, but this is a temporary employment contract that I created for the purposes of hiring those folks. So by temporary employment, we do withhold taxes for these people and pay the workers' comp. But it's employment for a definite period. And not all of the policies apply to them, but many of them do, so I list those out. And they don't receive benefits. All of the funds that will pay these folks and pay for the, all of the expenses that go along with providing them temporary employment will come out of the budget of the aquatic invasive species program.
Okay. Commissioner Bowe?
I don't have any questions. As you know, I'm the chair of the Aquatic Invasive Species Task Force. I appreciate Molly's work on this, getting those contracts in order so we can hire those temporary workers. As you know, we've also been granted the money by the state to do a sundry things, including hire temporary workers to actually do the work of the Aquatic Invasive Species Task Force. So be glad to answer any questions too, and I appreciate the board's support.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. Why would we not consider independent contractors so we don't have the exposure of workman's comp?
The way these positions are defined does not really fall under the way independent contractor is defined, because Amanda is requiring them to be at particular places at particular times.
Okay.
An independent contractor, you give them a project to complete, they do it on their own time with their own equipment, all of that. So I don't think that it would be defensible to,
Okay.
even if they wrote in a contract, I agree, I'm an independent contractor, the IRS doesn't always.
Another question is that the rate under the mileage in .5 there, are we not following the federal rate, and is that this rate doesn't seem to be the current rate?
Okay, where,
That's page 94, 5 mileage. The rate is 575. I believe the rate right now is
5.4, should be 5.4. I can make that change, so
Yeah.
I would ask you to approve it with that change.
And then the other thing is, when we looked at establishing this position and looking at the funds coming through the grant monies, did we project what we felt would be both compensation for time and the mileage in
Yes.
determining the position?
That's in Ms. Weberg's budget.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Storley?
I have no question.
Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions. I just prepared to make a motion to support this.
Changes?
Yeah, with changes, yes.
Okay, can I get a
I can read
second?
this.
Molly?
Just want to make sure that we specifically designate authority to Heidi to sign this type of contract with the folks who are,
So I'll just read this.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I move to approve in form the contract attached, which defines the relationship the county has with watercraft inspectors who will be temporary employees, designating authority to Board Chair Heidi Dukirk to execute this agreement on behalf of the county for the watercraft inspectors chosen by the AIS coordinator Amanda Weberger.
With the
With the
changes
noted
to the
change.
With the
mileage?
noted changes.
Okay.
thank you.
Can I get a second?
Support.
Commissioner Gamble? Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.
Where did Betty go? I was all ready for her.
We could do the,
All right, commissioner concerns, commissioner reports, meeting to note, and meeting updates.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Storley?
I'm hoping that after the legislative session is over with our representative and senator, that we'll be able to meet.
Jeff has already coordinated setting
Okay,
up a date and
so
time.
we don't have a date, or we do? No, not yet.
Yep,
Okay.
but he is in contact with them and taking care of it.
So within the next month, within the next, you don't know, because they need to sleep after they've been.
Well, Mr. Eklund has a job that he's required to get back to, so he had told me that he was looking at the end of June.
Well, that's
End of June.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, Commissioner Moe, are you available for WTIP tomorrow morning?
Yes, I am.
Excellent.
And Madam Chair, the resolution, did you want me to talk about that now? That I have, a letter that I have from ACMO?
That was E, which would be after D.
Oh, I didn't remember.
Which is
Remember
not-
that you designated it a letter,
We kind of have to.
right? Okay, so that I'm up. So,
Hold that thought for 1 second, though. Ginny, do you want us to wait and see if this person comes in, or?
Well, you know, according to our agenda, it's 12:30, and we're not gonna be here at 12:30, so, I can speak for them momentarily.
Okay, so let's let Commissioner Frank Moe tell us where he's from, and then we'll have discussion. Go ahead.
not sure if I'm from Hovland.
Really?
You
Yeah.
have more than Hovland in your district.
Yes, Colville and Grand Portage. As you know, I'm the board representative on Acme Area Coalition of Multiple Use, and they have asked me to bring the letter to you all that they're sending to Congressman Nolan and to other members of our congressional delegation and other members of Congress, I think that they would like to, that are empowered to deal with the U.S. Forest Service. Right now, the Forest Service and a lot of our trails are dependent upon, that are described in our trails plan, are dependent upon volunteer labor to actually clear those trails. And the Forest Service has the rule that they all have to have regular chainsaw certification and first aid, which, you know, is understandable. However, we have volunteers who, at their own expense, have to continue to get these trainings repeatedly, and their feeling is that it's difficult for volunteers to foot the bill for this, one, and two, they feel as though they have the training. They've already had the training, and it's not necessary to keep going through that. So a couple things. I would bring this to you to get some input as to what's the board's feeling on this issue. You know, would we like to support them? And either do a letter ourselves or a resolution. And the other would be I'm anticipating Commissioner Storley's concern is that if this is something that you would like to support, I would like to then communicate with Nancy Larson or communicate with the Superior National Forest just to, you know, discuss the matter with them. I know their hands are tied. This isn't coming from Superior National Forest. This is coming from the federal office. So it would be a little bit around them. On the other hand, I would like to proceed with their full knowledge of what we're doing. So.
Okay, so we will move to discussion. This is a resolution, so if the board as a whole would like to move forward with this resolution, it will be put on the agenda for a future meeting.
Great.
So this discussion is just
Got it.
what Commissioner Moe has presented to us and how we would like to present it, so we will do our normal roundtable.
And just a point of clarification, Madam Chair, it could be a resolution or it could be a letter. I'm really looking for the board's input and guidance on how you all would like to proceed. I have
Yes.
my opinion, but I'd like to hear what you obviously.
Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for clarification, the one issue is that volunteers are required to get chainsaw certification annually? Like, how often are they
CPR.
required to
Yeah, I
get
think the
certification?
chainsaw certification, I think it's biannually, every 2 years, yeah.
CPR.
And CPR every 2 years also.
Just to be able to work on the trail, to be able to volunteer. They're required
Mhm.
that by the federal government.
Correct.
Because
Mhm.
it's the federal government land that they're
Correct.
clearing trails on. Yeah, that does seem sort of excessive, a lot to ask. I mean, I would prefer that people were absolutely trained, but I don't see the necessity of every other year getting chainsaw training. I don't know.
It's the length of certification, like a CPR lasts for 2 years. I'm assuming that the chainsaw is also 2 years.
So the other question is, how much is this, I mean, it's time. It's probably a huge
CPR
time
certification right now goes for roughly $60 a person locally, 60 to $100 locally, and I'm not sure about chainsaw training.
Yes, The chainsaw training varies in cost. I think the Forest Service does try to offer that. The DNR also tries to offer it. But still, there's the time, expense, and travel when it is offered for no charge.
Okay, yeah, it just seems like a lot to ask of volunteers.
Yeah. Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, when I was reading this, I decided I needed to get their side of the story, so I contacted Kirk, who's the ranger in Tofty, and John Benson. And this has been a 30-year thing. They really haven't been able to change any of the requirements other than this summer in June, they're going to have 2 trainings for chainsaw and CPR, so they are doing it locally. If somebody comes from another state and they have the certification there, it doesn't apply here. So, you know, I guess what we're really looking at is that personal liability release or waiver be considered a factor in how the government approaches the volunteers. That's what you're asking, that we look at that. They would be more than happy to come and discuss more of the background on all this, but there is going to be training. And I think it's important that maybe we consider implementing this with our comprehensive trail also, because, you know, we all talked about the snow, the wind, the ice, all of that on our trails over the winter. We certainly want to have volunteers come. And so I think that I would encourage them, which they hopefully aren't going to be coming at 12:30 because we probably won't be here, but they're willing to come in the future.
Okay, thank you, Ginny. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Moe, when you said this is coming from, what was it that was coming from? That's why, when you made that comment, I was trying to catch it.
Well,
at that point.
this letter is from the Arrowhead Coalition of Multiple Use.
Right, but the coming from, you were referencing and meaning that the requirement is coming from feds?
Yeah, this is from the Forest Service.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay. I would say, you know, from a common sense standpoint, I mean, if we're just coming off public health, human service, and bureaucracy. You know, comment in sometimes getting where we want to get, we gotta jump through these hoops. It seems to be counterproductive. So I think finding the balance between what takes, if we look at the litigious nature of society, we say we're trying to manage risk through this so that we know that we checked our, you know, dotted our I's and crossed our T's, that we go through this process. But given our experience like this last year, if we rally and people say, we want to help, but then we've got to jump through these hoops in order to be able to do it, that would seem to be counterproductive from a common sense standpoint of trying to get where we're getting. To Commissioner Storley's point, that if there's something that's a waiver, so that we ask some basic questions and they sign off, like happens in many other areas, then it's not like we're just handing anybody, you know, a chainsaw. So I would say that from a legal standpoint, if it's driven by keeping people safe and protecting us from a risk standpoint, is there another way we can do that on a waiver, that a volunteer would say, hey, yes, I know how to use it, I understand the risk associated with it, and I would sign off. Then I think what we do is we get people that want to help us can do that. So those are the two things I would look at, is let's make it happen, but let's also be, you know, protective of the concerns.
I would like to have the Forest Service here and have a discussion and talk about whether we do a resolution or letter. I'm not opposed to either one. I would just like to have their input on it. And as a volunteer who doesn't get paid at the YMCA, I have to have certified CPR training, but the Y does offer it. So it's a question to ask, and let's find out what other options the Forest Service is offering. So Jeff, could we set up a time for the Forest Service? Okay, and then I don't know if we put this on the same date agenda after they're here, if the board's comfortable with that.
Same agenda as what?
Well, if we have the Forest Service here, I don't want this to get lost.
Right.
So I think this should be included under that agenda item for action. If the board's comfortable with a resolution or a letter, if you could clarify that, Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would suggest that the Commissioner Moe wants to draft a letter or a resolution for that meeting, that that would be in the packet. It would not necessarily be informed by the, the discussion that we had with the forestry, but we could edit it at that point, but at least we'd have something so that we'd be able to act on it.
Or we could move to consider a later date too with some additional information if we needed it. And just, I also want to be clear that John Benson in particular, but the local Superior National Forest is very rigorous in trying to accommodate volunteers. So this is not directed at them. It's directed at the requirement itself coming from Washington that is beyond their control. And so this is trying to affect the policy decision at a higher level, not saying that in some way that they're making it difficult for our local volunteers and the Superior. That is not the case.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, if we have course offerings and they're free to people and, make it accessible and that kind of stuff, then that helps certainly to some degree. But
And I would like to thank you for the approach in bringing this to us and sharing this information with us. Is very helpful. Thank you. Okay, we have Mr. Lane here, so let's jump back in. Mr. Lane.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Morning. We have a single item on the agenda this morning, which is a very well intended conditional use permit for a home business operation. And it's, the applicant is Elizabeth Perry, Betsy Perry, who has a sign manufacturing business, mostly placards and small plastic type signage and that sort of thing. She came to us originally during the winter and was looking at establishing a business. She currently leases a building in Grand Marais, and she wanted to establish the operation on her property out on Cardinal Lane. And so in discussion, she indicated that she was going to have some specialized buildings for manufacturing and that sort of thing. And at that point, we looked at a home business conditional use permit as the likely venue. The difference being a home occupation, which is basically in the house, and a home business, which has commercial applications and may require specialized buildings and that sort of thing. One of the important evaluation criteria for a home business is the impact on the neighborhood. And in Ms. Perry's case, she's out in a remote area. She's out at the end of the maintained county road, Cardinal Road. She has 120 acres, and for us, it's, there's not going to be an impact on the neighbors. Her nearest neighbor is over a quarter mile away. Her business, manufacturing, is self-contained in a building, and the primary impact is that there will be occasional employees coming in and out, but also that most of her deliveries and in and out of the property are Federal Express or UPS. And so to us, and echoing the Planning Commission's discussion, that it really made sense to have this where it is, and it gives her a lot of autonomy over her business and her home. She's doing some agricultural endeavors as well. So all in all, a very good fit, and the Planning Commission viewed that favorably and recommended by unanimous vote that the Board of Commissioners consider a similar action.
Okay, we will start with discussion. Commissioner Moe?
I have no questions. I think it's a good fit. I agree with the Planning Commission, Bill's presentation. We can support the maintenance of an important local business. I think we should do that.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
no comments? Ready to support?
Commissioner Storley?
Ready to support.
Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also ready to support, and I think it's an expansion of our business, and it's probably not just maintenance, so it's wonderful, I think, economic development. Thank you for coming. So I would make the motion that we grant Elizabeth Perry a conditional use permit to establish a home business on her Cardinal Lane property.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Moe seconds. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, Bill.
Great, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Lane. All right. Hopping back, if you can all keep up with us. Veterans request. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Don Wilson, who's commander for Post 413, came by with a letter of request for $300 towards the Veterans Memorial Fund. This is something that's provided by state statute. It's something that the board has done, and as the letter has indicated, the money will go to help pay for the flags, grave markers, and the upkeep of the Memorial Park. And as part of the Memorial Day celebration, the Ladies Auxiliary will be putting on a buffet for veterans at no cost at the Post, and the Post helps to pay for some of these expenses as well. So.
Okay. Discussion, Commissioner Severson?
No questions, thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moe?
No questions, I support.
My only question and concern is this seems to come in annually and comes in randomly through a random commissioner, and so, talked to Jeff a little bit about this. I think this should be a budgeted item and not come in like this. So, Jeff, would you wanna make that conversation with Don Wilson about,
We can have that
Just-
conversation before we start 2017 budget conversation.
and just, like we say, we're gonna do this for the next 5 years and have it budgeted for. I know it's a small amount, but it,
Would that be something that might fit in the discretionary?
well, that's a huge
Never mind.
application
Never mind.
process
Yeah,
for
never mind.
$300.
Good
I'm
point.
just
Oh, yeah,
thinking
good
like
point, good point.
Brian's
Yeah.
budget or the
Yeah.
commissioner's budget, wherever we wanna put it, just so that it's always set there and he doesn't have to remember to get a letter to somebody and get it here. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we know it's coming. It's similar to going over the financial report, just saying if it's an expense, we should reflect it in there, then we have the accountability for it and we know it's there. It's different. It's not a discretionary, I mean, it's at our discretion, but it's provided for under state statute, so
Mhm.
I would agree, and I think Mr. Wilson certainly be agreeable to say, hey, if you guys wanna put it in there and anticipate it, so I don't have to do it, and understanding, wanting to have things in advance in the board packet, I think given the Memorial Day coming up, that's the timing, so that we're fine. But I would agree, let's include it in the budget, so.
Okay, can I get a motion? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, motion to support the request for $300 towards the Veterans Memorial Fund.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Ginny, just so you know on this one, my suggestion was that this becomes a budgeted item that we have annually rather than waiting for the request.
Sure.
Okay, correspondence, anyone have anything on Historical Society minutes or Tennis Association news that they want to share? Okay, so we just have Rena, Betty, and Dave, and Dave should actually be here by now.
He was here and then she left.
I know. Commissioner Gamble?
I'll just bring it up as a matter of awareness for board members. I sit as a representative on the Historical Society Board. And if you read the minutes, I'm not sure if the minutes reflect this or not, but as you are aware that in purchasing the Bali Blacksmith Shop, that funding for that was supplied to the Minnesota Historical Society, and with that funding came some requirements that any changes, proposed changes would go before the Minnesota Historical Society before actually implementing those. And when the Minnesota Historical Society had come up recently, they noted the changes that were made, and we did not comply with that requirement. So just,
Yeah, I saw
in
that.
full disclosure, just saying that
Yeah.
there's.
You call them requirements, I call them restrictions.
Yeah. And so, just, to say respectfully, when we enter into these agreements, it's, as a board, we have responsibility, oversight on that, and so we can help our administrators by just making sure we're familiar with the fine print.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have Rena up before us.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I have two requests to bring before the board this morning. The first one is a service monitor. You may recall that last fall during the budgeting process, we had asked for capital in our budget to, for $50,000 to purchase this piece of equipment that is used for tuning our radios. And at that time, we pulled it out of the budget because of, trying to be team players. But it is something that we need. Just to give you an idea, currently, we have a piece of equipment on loan to us to just start testing which radios are out of tune. And we've placed that only up at the LEC, and so people key in and then we find out if they're out of range. And in the first week, we found 75 radios that are falling out of range. So there is a need for this. So then we did come back to you again in November, and we said, there's a possibility of a grant to pay half of it. Would you approve $25,000 if we get that grant? And as you know, we didn't get the grant. So we were sort of dead in the water there. But sometimes good things come to those that wait. So there is a new piece of equipment out there that costs $30,000 instead of $50,000. And that piece of equipment is a version of the one we originally requested for, but it has actually all the features that we need. So, so this request is for that piece of equipment. So how do we want to pay for that? We, as you know, had money in the equipment bond last year. $250,000 was for the paging project, which, by the way, is done, which is up and operational, which was a really big deal. We replaced the county's entire paging system. But we actually saved some money from that, and I think I should have worn my glasses.
26,517.
Yeah, we saved like 26,000 on that, and that money can only be used for other equipment. So I'm suggesting that the money that we saved would go toward this $31,000 purchase, and then the additional $5,000 and change, whatever it is in there, $4,527 would come out of the MIS Capital Fund, which is where we had proposed that last year that the other half from the grant would come from, but this is $4,000 rather than $25,000. And then when I always like to do more than one thing at a time, so when Rowan took the paging system down, at the same time he did inventory work, and he took down all the old VHF equipment that was no longer in use when we replaced it with the armor equipment. So we have a lot of equipment, most of it quite still functional, and so he and Dwayne Egge are inventorying that right now, and we plan to sell it. We think there will be several $1,000s that comes from the sales of that stuff on eBay, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. So we will repay this money back into the capital account, and then we will probably put the remaining money that we get from those sales into a radio capital account, so we can start doing some of the things that we need to do with the towers. So that's the request. That was a little long-winded, but it gives you some background and context of what you've discussed before. And I guess I'm asking you to go ahead and allow us to purchase that piece of equipment and pay for it the way I've described.
Okay, we'll start with discussion. Commissioner Sievertson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds like it's very well thought through, and it seems really good. And I just remember in the conversation before that this being able to keep our radios in tune, so to speak, will save us a lot of money, because currently we have to send them out and be without them, and it's a gathering process. This would have it in-house.
Right.
So my only question is, yes, good things come for those who wait. Would better things come if we waited longer?
Exactly.
Well, there is a statute of limitations on that. I think I don't know how long we'd have to wait for that. But the fact is, we are finding lots and lots of radios that are going out of tune, and that has an impact on public safety. So we were able to, timing is, there's a lot of timing pieces of this, and one is we were able to borrow this very expensive piece of equipment that we can take from tower to tower, have people key in, and now we're not retuning everybody, but we're retuning the ones that are out of tune. And so while we're doing that, it makes a lot of sense if we can move ahead with this and get those radios in tune, and then get us into an operational model so that radios never go out of tune. So,
Good point. It's
You know,
saving us a lot of time, just being able to do it all in one.
some of it is about
swoop.
time, it's not all about money, it's
Yeah.
about time and efficiency.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Storley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, sounds like a penny saved is a penny earned, and I think this is well thought through, and timing and tuning are important for this type of equipment, and I appreciate you looking into the possibility of selling some of the used equipment, and that could bring back some revenue too, so thank you for doing all that.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Rena, I appreciate your process in trying to balance, need with where do we find the money and what's gonna, meet with the favor of the board. I think that it's always a rather anxious thing when you want something and you figure it's what you need, and then time goes on, you don't get it, and then you find out that there's actually a better solution. And you made the comment, to the timing issue, and I agree with Commissioner Severson's comment, if good things come to those that wait, then if you wait a little longer, do better things show up. But at some point, you find that balance in a field where technology is always changing, and there might be something better down the line, but in the meantime, we're stuck with what we're stuck with and not solving a need. So I appreciate, again, the thoroughness of presenting this. It's something we've identified we need, and I would support it.
Commissioner Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Renee, help me to understand this a little bit. So, I'm thinking in my head an analogy. So the tuning thing would be like working with radios, like sighting in our deer rifles, and the equipment that you're like is that right? Getting them right to the right spot. Is that right? Or
Yes.
okay. And then the equipment that you had that you're working on your towers was maybe moving the target, right? It was tuning the towers appropriately to the radios.
No, the piece of equipment that Rowan, and I could bring Rowan in here if you want a really technical explanation, but the piece of equipment he has, basically, we set it up in different towers, and people, when they get close with the radio, what we ask is people that work in that region or that range, to key up their radios like 5 times within a certain period of time. And then this piece of equipment actually gauges, which ones are how good the signal is from each of those 5 radios. And then he sets a range of what's acceptable, and then those radios are either in or out of that range. And, they just go out of tune, over time.
So it
And
makes
it's
sense to
about-
tune them up tune them now while you know.
Yeah, so the worst radios, the ones that aren't, yes, it does. Because if we gather all that information and then we can't really tune them, then
Right.
this piece of equipment goes back.
And you need it again.
Yeah, either that or you just end up tuning every radio all at once, and that's not very efficient either.
That
So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I make the motion that Rena uses the funds and that we authorize the $4,527 additional to cover for the purchase. Mr. Gamble?
And maybe just add that any revenues, as stated, Rena stated, that come from the sales of obsolete materials would go back in.
Back to the capital fund.
To cover this cost, yeah.
I'll support that.
Mr. Gamble seconds. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
My analogy is, I waited till my car was gonna have 200,000 miles before I traded it, and 175,000, it was sitting on the side of the Gunflint Trail with the electronic components working and the gasoline function failing.
You ran out of gas?
No. It was a hybrid. It was a hybrid, and so it decided what part wanted to go, and it couldn't make it up the hill.
My analogy is trying to listen to AM radio in an automobile driving.
Driving, moving?
All right,
What
Rena,
frequency
video
is that?
services.
All right, video services. So something near and dear to all of your hearts is the public filming and videoing of these meetings so that we can put them on our website. As you know, Boreal TV has been doing that for several years. And Boreal itself is under some changes right now in terms of really looking at their business structure. About 9 or 10 months ago, I talked to Jack McDonald when he was still with Boreal TV and kind of let him know that we were going to be moving toward a new website and would want a kind of a different video solution. The solution that we have now puts our video both on Boreal TV and then pushes it out to our site. So we don't have very much control over how we use that video, sharing it on social media, a lot of other things like that. That I wanted to use it more of a YouTube kind of a platform where we have unlimited storage. It would be viewed there with other videos that the county had. So we had that conversation a while ago, and I asked him if this was something we could work out, and he said he didn't really see them going that direction. So we had that conversation. So as we're getting close to the website launch, which I think will probably be the second week of June, I'm kind of honing in on June 15th right now as a good date. We have been building that YouTube channel site. And so I went over and talked to the new director at Boreal and said, is this something, we're making this change. Is this something that you want to make this kind of a change or invest in? And it's not their core business. And, so it's a change. It's a business change for them. I'd also like to get us to the place where we're live streaming these meetings, and that requires an investment from who's ever doing it. As you know, Patrick Knight is a videographer in our community that has a business. He's investing in it heavily, and so I'm requesting that, our contract with Boreal is up in June, and that we just switch to this other one. It's basically the same price. It's done a little bit differently. In the other contract, we paid them up front for a whole year. This one will be paid for on an hourly basis for the time that they spend. The contract that's here, Molly has reviewed, helped me put together. So it's just a new contract for video services for you guys, basically, and I'm looking for approval on it.
Okay, Commissioner Moe?
I know Patrick, as most of you do, I think. His work is great. He's a very creative and ambitious person we'd like to keep in the community, and I think us also benefiting from his work here regularly would be great. Yes, so I strongly support it.
So I forgot to mention one thing. Patrick will be hiring Josh as a subcontractor. So what you see here won't change very much. But what you will have by doing that is a backup for Josh, as Josh is on vacation today. And it was Patrick that got called anyway to come and do that work. So between the two of them, you won't have that gap. You'll have newer, more modern equipment, and you'll have a regular videographer in Josh and a backup with Patrick. So I forgot to mention that piece. Kind of risk-averse piece.
Stan's not regular.
Right.
And Stan
is clearly irregular.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we had Stan, we'd get the 3 friendly musketeers that would help us out. Stan's always there. So in reading this, based upon what we're looking at, basically we're paying $25 a month more and $300 annually to have a lot more capability
Yes.
of what we have. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the way the technology world is going, YouTube seems to be, you know, in most everybody's way of finding out what's going on, or finding out what they need to do or know. Now, that piece of equipment there, is that gonna be the same?
No, it'll, well, yes, that would be Patrick's camera then, yes.
Oh,
So it would be
okay.
his camera then. It would be a,
So no other equipment would be required?
no,
Okay.
unless we go to video streaming, and then he has to add something on there to make that possible.
So that would be another step, but not right now.
That would,
But it wouldn't be a step for us. It wouldn't change this contract. He
Okay.
would do that
Okay.
within this contract.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Rena, for bringing this to our attention. And I'm very much in favor in supporting a local business who actually wants to do this business. And so that makes sense to me. And I like that it has all these benefits and flexibilities with use of the film. My question is, let's just say Stan's not here, and Josh is not here, and Patrick's not here. Is there a requirement that we videotape our meetings? Is that?
There is no requirement that we
Okay,
videotape our
so it
meetings.
just would be,
That's
a
right.
fluke, and it wouldn't get videotaped, and it wouldn't
Mhm.
be horrible. So I would make a motion that we move to change our videography business from Boreal at the end of our contract and move it to Patrick Knight's business.
good measure.
Any further discussion? So we have Mo as the second. My only concern is there's a minimum monthly fee and no cap on the maximum monthly fee.
Well, then you have to keep your meetings short, I guess.
Did y'all hear that?
We can
I
just
can
prompt
move
him when he
around.
wants action and when he doesn't.
And the reason he has a minimum, let's say he gets here, and it's, you know, a 30-minute meeting.
Setup.
There's a setup
Kind of
time
setup.
and the back-end time that he has to load those videos. So there's there's a lot of time that he has invested that's in addition to the hourly amount that he's gonna
Yeah.
charge you for to be here, so.
Let's just
that's-
review this after 6 months to a year to see that
Yep,
we're staying
yep,
within.
it would be a
That's a
year
good
long,
idea.
and then we look at it again next year.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Rena.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Betts, thank you for waiting.
Okay, got his stuff together.
Okay, we have 3 items for the board this morning. The first item is a project award for CP 1602, which is our calcium chloride contract. On last Wednesday, we opened bids for 144,000 gallons of liquid calcium chloride. We received one bid for the project, that is at 94.2 cents per gallon on that. In comparison, last year was 90.8 cents per gallon, so it's up about 3.4 cents per gallon this year. So on that, so I think the price is relatively in line. We've stayed fairly steady over the years, so I anticipated a price increase for quite a long time. So it's not a significant price increase. Which is a total bid amount, ends up being a total bid amount of $135,648.10 for the 144 gallons. And of course, those are estimated quantities on that. We budgeted $140,000 for calcium chloride this year. So, so we recommend that that the board award the project to Envirotech Services Inc. subject to completing contracts and approval by the attorney.
Okay, discussion, Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. Sounds like a good deal.
Commissioner Stroller?
Or our only deal.
Yes, it sounds like a great deal. Saving money here and there is a great deal. Thank you.
Mr. Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I went online just to see if I could find anything out on what the
Cheaper
price of
on
gallon was
Amazon?
going, you know. And if you could take it in 55-gallon drums, you might be able to get, no, and what I did see, because there was a blog where they were talking about it, and it was around 90 90 cents, you know, a gallon, and that was back in 2012, so.
Yeah, that's about what we were paying at the time.
Yeah.
Commissioner Moe?
No questions.
Can I get a motion? Commissioner Gamble?
Motion to accept the Highway Department's recommendation that we award to Envirotech Services, subject to completed projects approval by the county attorney at 94.2 per gallon for our sodium chloride, calcium chloride.
Can I get a second?
Support.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for correcting the type of chloride we're getting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Sodium would not be good.
Madam Chair, I just mentioned, I happened to be in the hardware store, Buck's Hardware Store, and there was a Highway Department gentleman. I didn't see him, I just heard the conversation. They were referencing County Road 6, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah, so it was interesting to be a fly on the wall in that conversation. They were talking about, could we get some of this on there right now? And he said, actually,
Fluffy up there.
Yeah, probably be a while before we can get on the 6 for a while, so.
It
when
ran out partway up my road last year, and so people were like, can we get some more? And I'm like, no, we got lucky. All right, Dave.
Next item is well, the next two items are, we solicited geotechnical proposals for our next two projects. The first one being 16618-005, which is the pavement rehabilitation of South Shore Drive, Kasai 18. On that, and then also the 16612-074, which is the rehabilitation of the pavement on Gunflint Trail. This is in the north of Trout Lake up to roughly the northern light boat landing, Greenwood Lake area, Greenwood Road area, so for that. So taking the, just making sure, well, I'll just do it, I might not be in order on the agenda here. But taking and talking about the Kasai 18 project, we received a proposal from Braun Intertech and American Engineering Testing on that. Braun Intertech for $16,300 and American Engineering Testing for $14,050. We're asking the board to award the contract to AET for an estimated professional services fee of $14,050 and authorize the highway engineer to sign the proposal on behalf of the county. You want me to take the other one too?
Yes, please.
Okay. The next one is, of course, the Gunflint Trail project. This one got a little tougher on evaluation of the proposal, but Braun estimated their services at $26,917. And American Engineering Testing estimated their cost of their service for $23,900, but they also have an add-on for flaggers, and it's one of the ways that they do their proposals, and something I want to talk to them about. But in this case, we definitely need flaggers on the Gunflint Trail. So when you figure that in and the amount of time that they figured per day, and the amount of days that they figured for the job, they ended up being at $29,000. So we're recommending that the board award the contract to Braun Intertech in the estimated professional services fee of $26,917 and authorize the highway engineer to sign the proposal on behalf of Cook County.
Okay, so we will move to discussion for items 4, B, and C. Commissioner Moe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support, let's get it done.
Commissioner Gamble?
Support?
Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would support, but Braun at 26 will still have flaggers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Severson?
Madam Chair, I was just curious, you know, these two companies, I'm assuming they're coming up at about the same time? I mean, these projects are out, but the borings are coming up about the same time? And
They'll be doing them roughly about the same time, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't like bid them together and do a multiple project discount or something?
Yeah,
Like,
you
is that
think,
better?
I like taking them as separate contracts
Okay.
for financial reasons,
Okay.
financial accounting and projects,
Okay.
project management kind of a thing, so, but we do one RFP for that and request that they provide two separate proposals for that, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to Commissioner Severson's question, would there be any benefit if they were to bid, the two projects, but bill them separately so that you'd have your accounting? In other words,
I don't believe so.
you wouldn't, okay, all right.
Can I get a motion for one or both, Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, motion to support the requests as outlined.
For AE?
For both.
For both
Yeah,
contracts?
yeah,
With authorization of the engineer to sign?
yes.
Okay, can I get a second? Commissioner Storley, was that you? Okay. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Dave.
I think that's it. So, just an announcement that we are, Gunpla Trail, or the Sawbill Trail project started this morning, so we are, they're starting to work on pipes and they'll be working on, some pipes and some subgrade corrects over the, to start out with on that. So.
Okay, Commissioner Muller, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave, just a quick question. So a lot of the road restrictions went off
Yes.
fairly early, which is nice because of the
Yes.
dry conditions, one good benefit to them. But there's a few that are still on, as you
There's
know.
quite a few on still.
Yeah. Any thought on that? You're just
We
keeping an
gotta
eye on
go
it?
out, we've gotta go out and do some looking at the roads. We'll do a release either tomorrow or the next day. We're in training for the next 2 days, so, being able to get out and evaluate the roads is getting a little difficult.
You'll assess it by the end
And
of the week.
your end is really bad this year. We've released almost nothing on the east end yet. They're just in tough shape this year, so.
Still pretty wet, yeah.
West end's doing much better. We've got almost everything off on the west end except for a few roads, so yeah.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hesitate to ask the question, but in your spare time, are you watching what's going on to the legislature and the latest governor proposal?
I did not have time yesterday to read that. I read about it in the morning. I read about last Friday and then read about it a little bit before he announced, and I have not. I got my announcement at the end of the day, so I didn't have time to really look at it yet. So.
Yeah. Both proposals are, to generate money through, increased tax one way or the other, either on, 5% gas tax or on license tabs and other things. And then dipping into, I think, to the general fund. But it would be, as we see in public health, human services, if the legislature could make a commitment with monies from the general fund and the money sources that we do have in place, that those are designated for the responsibilities that exist throughout the state. So
Yeah.
that every year we can anticipate and plan accordingly.
Exactly, and that's if the commitment is towards, if on the House's side, if the commitment is towards that it's a consistent budget amount, that's a good dollar amount. I mean, it's a good dollar amount. It's not great, but it's good. The nice thing about doing the gas tax is it's constitutionally dedicated, and once it's set, then it's absolutely can't be dipped into by the legislature. So, so that's kind of the pros and cons, I think, as I see it. But it's all green money, so however it comes, I'll be happy to use it on our roads.
Great, thank you.
So, great.
Thanks.
All right, Betty, you get the Resiliency Award today for coming and going and waiting and.
Sure, so far, yeah, yes.
I know, we missed you. As soon as you walked out the door, I was ready.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have, before you, you should have abatements for various things, including clerical errors, declare an estate that was quite old, that had to be cleaned up, and then a court settlement. So they're just for various things for your approval.
Okay, Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it seems pretty clear, and people make mistakes, and people are smart enough to notice and bring it forward. And so my questions or curiosities are about the one that went to
Tax court?
tax court. Those were, so I was looking for tax court. Yeah, so, I mean, because there's quite a bit of money that is involved in that one. There were quite a few parcels and.
It was one parcel over a number of years, and I
Okay.
worked with Attorney Hicken through this process,
Got it.
and we came up with an in-between amount, and so It's just finalized now.
Okay, but it's just one parcel over many, many years?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it looks like you're kind of cleaning up the records and looking back into what has not happened and what could be happening, and, you know, if all these errors are finally accumulated, we'll be good in the county. So is this up to the current date now, or do you anticipate any more looking into?
You know, we do have one that has been finalized, but I can't speak about that yet. We're in the process of working through that. I have to meet with Attorney Hicken regarding that. But as they come in, they are updated and completed as soon as we possibly can. And keep in mind, the Eckroot Nelson and Corolla Nelson, that came from the auditor's office, actually. So they not only come from our office, they do come from other offices.
That's what I was wondering, if they come from the actual landowner themselves.
Not in any case. I mean, not in every case.
Yeah.
In some instances, they do. They can bring it to our attention. Otherwise, it's found through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Campbell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, are you saying, Betty, that these 8 that are before us right here, those were all internally discovered? They didn't come as a result of landowners coming in?
They were, for the most part, internally discovered, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
And doing our checks.
Commissioner Moe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thank you, Betty, and your department. I mean, again, it just seems like you're being very rigorous in writing all the records that are in your office. Just another example of that, which we appreciate.
Thank you. We try to be fair, and that's part of the process, so.
Can I get a motion to approve? Commissioner Campbell? Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Moe? Commissioner Storley got the last one, so. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Clearwater and Leo Lake landing maintenance.
Right. I'm not sure if you have a copy of the contract. It's a standard one that has been used for a number of years. The person who had been doing it for a number of years actually notified us very recently that she would no longer be doing that, and so we're in the process of getting someone else to do that. And it's just the standard contract. I've asked Attorney Hicken to review it. I'm not sure if she has or not yet. And does it look sufficient? Yeah. It's just our very standard, the one that we've used for a number of years. It's $80 a week, and that's to take care of the Leo and Clearwater landings, stocking, cleaning, checking on them. So we do have a person who has agreed to take on this responsibility, but we needed the contract approved so that we would be able to take it forward for signing. So we have Candace Danielson, who works at the Clearwater Lodge, who was close to both of those, that is willing to do this work. So that would be who we'd be contracting to do this at $80 a week. And it'll run from May 22nd and tentatively be completed October 8th, depending on the weather too.
Okay, discussion, Commissioner Moe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supportive, obviously. It is interesting, though. This is another, as we've gone through this parks and trails planning process, you know, we have sundry little details that are around the counties, mixed in each of your departments, that would likely, you know, obviously with discussions with our staff, would fall under the purview of some type of park and recreation entity within the county. So anyway, I support it. I just think it's another example of that coming to us.
Commissioner Campbell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. I know we have a number of these different contracts, but what basic accountability do we have relative to the work that we contract for?
They do have to sign this, and they're responsible for completing it.
We get
based
phone
on
calls
the
in my
contract.
district if it's not done.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is it basically word of mouth, because we don't have any.
It was very difficult finding someone close. That was, the logistics part of it was our biggest hurdle, at getting someone close that it would be feasible to do that,
Right,
so.
but the accountability, as, you know, Commissioner DeKirk suggests, comes when the public just says, hey, is anybody paying attention out there, or whatever, so.
That could be part of it, yes.
Commissioner Storley?
I have no comment.
Commissioner Severson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm curious that it's in your department, but, that,
I inherited it.
you
but-
inherited it, it's good, and you do a good job, so.
Land
that
Commissioner, I
works.
think, so to speak.
Oh, it's Land Commissioner, of course,
Yeah.
yes.
And there has been discussion, I know Jeff has looked at this going into the Parks and Rec portion of it, which it very well could.
As we grow and change. Thank you. So I'm ready to make a motion to approve the contract proposed for cleaning and maintenance of the Clearwater Leo Lake landings.
And I will second that. Any further discussion? Any opposition? All in favor? Madam, oh, okay, wait. Molly?
Madam Chair, thank you. I raised my hand for further discussion. Very minor, I see a typo in the October. But the other question I had is, who is supplying the
Sundries?
toilet paper,
Oh.
cleaning supplies? That's the only thing that's not addressed. I mean, it's a very simple task. We can have a very simple contract for it, but
The maintenance department drops up those, they go up and
Okay.
do mowing at McFarland, and they do things at different parks, so they've already dropped off the supplies.
okay.
And this person has gotten training by the previous
Okay.
contract
Does
person.
that need to be part of the motion? No? Okay. Everybody still comfortable? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Would anyone like to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh.